Hello and welcome to race number 6 of season 12 of the AAO League, where we have made the trip to Silverstone, one of the more interesting tracks here in the Formula 1 calendar, where we will see plenty of overtakes, I am sure. We'll be keeping on board throughout the course of this short qualifying session. That is just one session of 18 minutes, and then we've got a 50% lap race for you. That is 26 laps around the track in Silverstone in Britain. Looking at the Drivers' Championships heading into this, we are without Herman. He told us last week he'd not be here. He's stuck by his word, which means it's a chance for Danger David to close that gap even further. He's currently second place at the moment in the Mercedes. 201.5 points is the difference between him and the current championship leader, Herman 26, who of course is a standby driver. As is third place, Pleasant Snake, who is in the Red Bull today, the team that Danger David won the championship with last season alongside D. Perez. D. Perez makes his return in the Mercedes today, so plenty of interesting driver changes and team changes heading into today's race for you. We will jump on board, of course, with the Ferrari of Peter Caspi. He's been in the Ferrari seat for the majority of this season. And of course, he's making his way around the track, and it'll be nice to see the welcomed return of VSM Sandman back in the McLaren seat. He's been away for the last couple of weeks, but he's back, and we know that he is more than capable of contending at the front of this grid. 18 minutes, and we are well into the first couple of minutes of that qualifying session. I am flying solo today, so I apologise if there are any camera delays trying to find any of the incidents. I know Skin, whilst he's normally alongside me, is very good at keeping up to date with all the crashes as and when they happen. So I'll try and keep you up to date with those as best as I possibly can. Looking at the Constructors' Championship at the moment, after back-to-back wins and a very impressive back-to-back 1-2 a couple of weeks ago for the Mercedes, they currently sit 395.5 points ahead of AlphaTauri in second place. So the team of Danger David and D. Perez, who won last season in the Red Bulls, teaming up this season in the Mercedes, currently in 5th and 19th place respectively, of course, without setting a time. Are set to go back-to-back with two different teams, as we are on board with Peter Caspi out on the soft tyres at the moment, just warming them tyres up ever so nicely. Hopefully we won't see as many safety cars as we did get to see last weekend. I think the record we've had since covering the AAO League is 7 safety cars. So hopefully we won't see anything like that today. We'll get nice, clean, entertaining racing from start to finish for you. And we will start with Peter Caspi out on a timed lap at the moment, having just passed the checkered line on the start, on the pit straight is what it's called, isn't it, of course. And he's on his way now through the second and third corners, just taking them down into third gear, of course, entering into the first DRS zone. Throughout qualifying, DRS can be used as freely as possible in the DRS zone. You don't have to be within a second of the car ahead, of course. Making his way through a very long right-handed turn, quite comfortably, keeping himself in the nice area of the track with plenty of grip on the tyres as well. Going through the old pit straight and a long right-handed turn now, before we get up towards the infamous Maggots and Beckett's, of course, here at Silverstone. Going through Sector 2 at the moment, his time has gone red, which means it will be an invalidated lap time for whatever reason. So we'll see if Peter Caspi decides to steady himself down and go for another lap, or head straight back into the pit lanes. We will jump on board now with, we'll see who's the next one on the way round. We just saw there Veriduco's time had also been invalidated. We're on board with Quincy, his has been invalidated as well. Deeper is on an outlap at the moment, so we'll jump on board with Suribo, who's doing quite well on his time. Let's jump on board with Frankie, who's gone off track, so his time will undoubtedly be invalidated as well. Very good start for all these drivers getting invalidated lap times, as Truxton does the same on his way around. Let's jump on board with VSM Sandman, ever reliable, purple in Sector 2 at the moment. Probably one of the few drivers that's managed to set an actual timed lap going through Sector 2 in the past. He's seen himself out of qualifying contention and taking it almost as if it's a one-shot qualifying session to see himself through. He's carried on through the track this time round onto the pit straight. The time to beat is a 1:26.1 in the United Kingdom. It's 1:26.1, puts him on provisional pole for now. We've got a couple of drivers still going round on the track. We'll jump on board with Tarcangino. I don't think he's too far away. There's quite a lot of drivers now heading back into the pits after these invalidated lap times. Could prove quite costly. 4.5 minutes into this qualifying session. Plenty of time to get back out there and set another time. But all drivers were out on track, which meant chaos was on its way. We're on board with Tarcangino, who's got a 1:26.1 to beat. We see see Formula 1 Farah up the top left in the Williams at a 126.7. Tarkangino's is a 129.0, which is good enough for 4th place at the moment. As Danger David, it's a 126.5. Still 4/10 between him and his nearest competitor for the last couple of years. Some very good back and forth battling between Sandman and Danger David. The two of them at the moment have the front row sorted between them. We were on board with Siribo just for a moment there on a 134.6. He'll have to go again if he's going to improve that time and fight towards the front of this grid. A lot of drivers hitting sub 130 at the moment. We're on board with Veriduco now. He's flying round after that invalidated lap time just a few moments ago. Opens up DRS. Yes, it almost immediately opens up DRS, heading through the second DRS zone in Silverstone. Got a car moving to the side for him there to make his way through. This is a timed lap for him. 126.1 is the time to beat to take pole position away from VSM Sandman, or at least for the time being. I don't think he's going to beat the 126. He might struggle to beat the 131 as well, actually, to get him into the top 10 as it stands at the moment. He's got a 129.2, which puts him into 9th place. It was very close. As we see at the top, Sandman has gone back into the pits. Let's jump on board with Tobalenzen making his way round at the moment. Then last couple of corners for him to see his way through onto the pit straight. He's not beat the 126.1. Let's see how high he can put the McLaren. He pushes Veriduco down with a 129.0, 2/10 quicker than the time the Haas has just got, and Peter Caspi has hit a 128.8, which moves him up into 8th place. Let's jump on board with Kwan. He is out on a timed lap at the moment. The only driver still out on a timed lap at the moment as it stands. In the Williams, his teammate, Formula 1 Farah, currently up in 4th place as it stands. We see the top 3 at the moment, VSM Sandman, Danger David and Pleasant Snake. Pleasant Snake, of course, in the Red Bull this week. He's not got a set team that he's with throughout the course of the season, but he's given a very good argument as to why he should be given a seat in the All-Assist Soft League. Currently 3rd in the Drivers' Championship this season as it stands at the moment, behind the dominant performances of both Herman and Danger David that we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks. So we're on board with Kwan making his way through the last long straight. Purple in Sector 2 was the time that he set. See if we can keep that momentum carrying him through Sector 3. 126.1 is the time to beat to take that away from VSM Sandman. Quincy now out on a time lap on the Red Bull, and that's who we're going to jump on board with, because Kwan, it happens, has gone into the pits. Not happy with the time that he was setting. We're on a timed lap here with Quincy in the Red Bull at the moment. His teammates up in 3rd place, very different from RS0121, who he's been teaming with in the past, someone that we've seen a lot of improvement for over the last couple of months and the start of this season 12 especially. But with Quincy making his way through Sector 2 at the moment, very comfortably keeping the car on the track. Some good grip on the tyres at the moment. There's a yellow flag just ahead of him, but that looks like it's on its way out, as it is one of the Williams drivers. I believe it's one of the Williams drivers. Looks like Formula 1 Farah heading his way back into the pit. So we'll stay on board with Quincy at the moment. Frankie 1811, Trugster, Toxic and Evil all out there on time laps. We'll jump onto board with them in a moment. Purple in Sector 2 for Quincy. He's got 126 to beat, 130 to get into the top 12. He's got to get 126.6 if he's going to get above of his teammate, who's now fallen down to 4th place as Formula 1 Farah has hit a 126.16, 500ths of a second behind VSM Sandman, which will separate him and Danger David at the top 3 positions, and Quincy's at a 127.9, putting him up into 7th place. So let's move to one side and jump on board with the Aston Martin of Evil 32 making his return back into the race alongside Skid Solo in the Aston Martins. The first time we actually covered the All-Assist Soft League, both Skid Solo and Evil 32 were competing for 3rd place alongside the Alpines. At the moment, it's been a very different season for the Aston Martins, and they'll want to end this on a high with only 3 races left. He's making his way through Sector 3 at the moment, getting past one of the McLarens on his way around as well, who's moved to one side for him. He's followed this track all the way around, not heading into the pits. He's on a 122 at the moment, goes round the final corner onto the pit straight with a 126.1 to beat, gets 126.4, and that will put him up into 3rd place. An excellent time from Evil 32. So we are still waiting for DDB890, Kwan and Skid Solo to set themselves timed laps. Toxic has left the session though, with his time that he's set of a 1:26.9. So unless he returns, the best he's going to be hoping for is 6th place come the start of this race. After this, of course, we do have a 26-lap race for you, 50% of the full race here at Silverstone on the way in race 6 of the All Assists Off League. It looks like it needs to be a win for Danger David, though, if he's going to close the gap on Herman and try and keep his Drivers' Championship, of course, defending that right now. So we are 10 minutes into this qualifying session, the only qualifying session that we get to see. We're on board with Frankie 1811 now, making his way through Maggots and Beckett's, the S's, if you will, on his way down to the second DRS zone in Silverstone, going through the third sector at the moment. There is a yellow flag just behind him, but it's nothing for him to worry about. He can continue pushing forward. We have got one of the McLarens heading round onto the pit straight now. I think it is VSM Sandman, who sets a 1:25.9, so betters his own time and makes it tougher for some of these other drivers as Frankie 1811 just locks up a little bit going into the pits there, aborting the time that he set. So let's jump on board with Veriduco in the Haas on a 1:28.4. He had a purple sector 1 earlier on, had an invalidated lap time as well on his first attempt around. He's making his way through into the third sector now, into the DRS detection zone as well. Making it through. Let's see if he decides he's going to pit as well. Toxic's rejoined the session, so there's a chance that he could better the 6th place finish that he got as Veriduco makes his way into the pits now. Let's jump on board with Peter Caspi in the Ferrari. He's making his way around. This time is also a valid lap time. See how far he can actually get it and how close he can get it to that of VSM Salmon, or if he can improve on a top 10 finish for the Ferraris. His teammate, DDB890, is currently inside of the pits at the moment, making his way round into the final sector on a 1:18 at the moment. Still got about 6 seconds if he can get himself around these last couple of corners. He too heads into the pits and aborts his lap time. So we're going to jump on board with Quan. I think I just saw a couple of raindrops on the way down as well. So we'll see if that changes the perspective of any of these drivers. Of course, it is raining now, and it depends on if these drivers can get themselves out there on this last set of soft tyres before we end up worrying about the intermediates and the wets. You'd think if it does get to the point there's going to be intermediate and wet tyres, there aren't going to be any better times being set, which would mean VSM Sandman, on his return to this league this season, is sat on pole position on a 1:25.9, which was a phenomenal time to be setting. As you can see from the camera view we have with Quan at the moment in the Williams, the rain is throwing it down at the moment, and you can see some of the puddles forming on the track, which means these soft slick tyres might not actually do the job for Quan. Might see him starting in 19th place. The Ferrari ahead of him, DDB890, and the Aston Martin behind him, Skid Solo, are both still in the pits at the moment, and I think they've waved off any chances they've got of getting themselves higher up this track. We see Quan head into the pits on a 1:43, only slightly slow actually of the time that Trugster set during this dry weather. So everybody is now into the pits. We'll jump on board with Siribo, who's out on track at the moment. Only him and Frankie 1811 are out on track, but he's risked it and come out on soft tyres. 5 minutes left of this session. I can't see him beating the times that he's already set, let alone any of those ahead of him and what they've set at the moment on a 1:29.3, making his way around the first couple of corners. DRS is now being disabled. It's just out of nowhere in these last couple of minutes that we've had plenty of rain, such as the typical British weather, just to throw a bit of dynamics towards us in the final few moments of this qualifying session. If things do stay as they are, it is going to be Sandman that takes pole position. Alongside him on the front row is the Williams of Formula 1 Farah. Then we've got the Aston Martin of Evor 32, followed by Danger David in 4th place. The Red Bull of Pleasant Snake taking 5th place, 3rd in the championship at the moment. Toxic CZ10 in 6th place. D Perez in 7th. T-Bran of the Alfa Romeo in 8th place. Quincy in the Red Bull in 9th place, as we are on board with Ciro, heading now back into the pits. We'll jump on board with Tobalenzen. I think he just trialled those soft tyres, and it didn't seem to have that run for him as Tobalenzen aborts and goes into the pits as well. We'll stay on board with Racing Wheel. I think he's going to have to follow the same suit as what everyone else is at the moment. He's on a 1:30.092. Might still be quite optimistic to think that he can beat that time whilst he's out there on these slick soft tyres in the Alpine at the moment. Him and Tarkangino working together this weekend. We've also got, as I mentioned, Quincy in the Red Bull in 9th. We've got Frankie 1811 in the Alpha Tauri in 10th place. Veriduco 11th in the Haas. Tarquingino, as aforementioned, in the Alpine in 12th place. Tobalenz 13th in the McLaren. Peter Caspi 14th in the Ferrari. Sir Ibo 15th in the Haas. We are on board now with the Alpine of Racing Wheel 027 at the moment in 16th place. Truckster in 17th, and we've got 3 drivers that haven't yet set a time, and I don't think they're going to be able to go out there and set a time. That is DDB890, Quan 23, and Skid Solo is heading into the pits now. We have got Racing Wheel, and just to give me something to keep on talking about, Truckster's made his way now out onto track. On a 141.7 is his best time. He's gone out on intermediates. Maybe a bit of optimism from him and the Alpha Tauri, believing that he can beat the 141 that he set previously. Can he beat the 130 that Racing Wheel's been out there and setting the dry tyres, though? To see if even with the intermediates he can try and compete closer towards a top 10 position, heading into the 50% lap race that's on its way in around about 5 or 6 minutes' time. We do have 2.5 minutes left of this qualifying session. We don't have only one driver out there at the moment. Veriduco's made his way out, and Tibran is now out on track as well. So more drivers starting to come out and risk these intermediate tyres in this wet weather. We don't have to worry about if there are any incidents. They're missing the race. The cars will all be sorted by the time the race happens. So regardless, they'll be good to go. Going through Sector 2 now, we're on board with Truckster. He's on 56 seconds making his way through. We'll tell you at the end of Sector 2 if that time is quicker or slower than his 141.7 lap that he did. The only lap that he's managed to complete in this qualifying session so far. Of course, when everybody started doing these laps, a lot of the times were invalidating. It forced drivers to go back in. Truckster currently 7 seconds slower than his fastest time, which should speak volumes of just how different driving in the wet weather is to driving in the dry weather, especially on a track like Silverstone, where we do mention Maggots and Beckett's and how different it can be going through those quick left-right corners through the S's, if you will. It's very difficult to be able to keep grip, especially in the wet weather, and the slightest of catch on the chicane and you're flying into the wall, and especially with the tyres and the lack of grip that they have in this sort of weather, it's unforgiving, and more often than not you're finding yourself in the wall, which, as I mentioned in qualifying, it can't be the worst thing, but in a race environment that is a completely different situation. We are on board with Tibran at the moment, trying to beat his time of 1 minute 27. I don't think that's going to be done. He's heading back into the pits now. Maybe some of these drivers just out there at the moment using this as an opportunity to adjust to the track, maybe get used to what it's going to be like driving in the wet weather in Silverstone. Last weekend when we were racing in Monaco, we saw very bright weather to start with. It did transition into rain before the end of the race, which then transitioned back into sunshine. It saw a lot of pit strategies having to be changed, but a lot of drivers weren't familiar with driving in Monaco during the rainy weather. A lot of preparation has gone into this weekend. I've seen a lot on the Discord channel saying that drivers have been out there practicing. Don't think it's necessarily in the wet weather, but as we know, the typical British weather does give us a lot of rain. So, as it stands, it is VSM Sandman out on pole position, and I think that is how we are going to be starting this race. So, Sandman on the top step, Formula 1 Farah in second, and Ivor 32 in the Aston Martin in third place. We do have 26 laps of a Silverstone Grand Prix on its way for you in just a few moments' time. Bringing up the back of the track will be Skid Solo, Quan, DDB890, Truckster, Racing Wheel 027, Sir Ibo in the bottom section. In the middle, we've got Peter Caspi, Tobalenz, Tarquingino, Veriduco, Frankie 1811, Quincy and Tibran. Then your top 7 readers: D. Perez in the Mercedes, Toxic CZ10, Pleasant Snake, Danger David, Ivor 32, Formula 1 Farah, and the McLaren of VSM Sandman back to where he feels that he belongs, on the front row of the grid. Veriduco's time that he set is a good 14 seconds slower than the best time that he'd already set, but he saw the lap through nonetheless. Credit the commitment to finishing that lap. 2.5 minutes left to allow these drivers to finish their laps, and I think that doesn't actually count for Veriduco. So in just a few moments' time, we'll be back with a 26 lap race. Welcome back to race 6 of season 12 of the All Assist Off League. We've joined just in time for the race to get underway, and starting off onto the first corner. It's a very short start in Silverstone. Remember, it's VSM Sandman taking that corner very quickly, followed by Formula 1 Fire. We've got quite a few changes down the bottom side of this grid. Nothing at the moment that causes any sort of safety car, but we do have a yellow flag out there. That's just disappeared quite quickly. 26 laps underway here in Silverstone, starting with VSM Sandman out in first place at the moment, followed by Formula 1 Farah in second place, going down the long straight into the quick long right hand corner that's available at the moment. It's almost like two corners for you, and Sandman 3/10 ahead of Formula 1 Farah. Ivor in third place. Danger David holds on to fourth. Fifth place of Pleasant Snake, separating the two Mercedes, with D Perez moving up one place into from seventh in that opening lap. No incidents as note. Great discipline from the drivers heading into Silverstone. It's a very tricky track to manage to make your way through without any sort of incidents taking place, especially with how short it is into the first corner from that pit straight starting. But we do stay on board with Formula 1 Farah at the moment. We'll jump on board now with T-Bran, who it looks like he's actually gone off track. He's going very slowly at the moment. He's allowing a lot of cars to pass him. He looks like he might have faced a bit of an incident. He's dropped all the way down into 18th place. He's going to a bit of a free fall there. Might have just gone off track ever so slightly, but managed to regain composure and get himself back on the track on those hard tyres, as we will now jump on board elsewhere. VSM Sandman, of course, sets the fastest lap of 1:31. We'll jump on board with DDB 890. He's up alongside Quan at the moment, trying to get past him going onto the pit straight. There's a couple of cars all joined together at this point. See if you can get him going into the first corner. There's not as much sharp braking in this first corner. It's quite a fast corner. Got a couple of corners actually like that in Silverstone before you actually get one where you've got to slow down ever so slightly. We'll jump onto the tyre side of things, as we've got the request there of the current championship leader Herman, who is unable to make this race. Yes, the drivers at the moment, plenty of different strategies that have been taken heading into this race. We've got VSM Salmon and Formula 1 Farah out there on soft tyres at the moment. Evo in third place. It looks like up the side of DDB 890 goes T-Bran. It looked like a slight bit of a collision there, as there's nearly a collision going into the side of Racing Wheel, who spun off. Excellent driving from DDB 890. The slight touch of the chicane from Racing Wheel spun him around, and excellent work from the Ferrari to avoid any sort of collision. But very close between him and T-Bran on the hard tyres before there was a collision there as well. So let's move across up to D Perez in sixth place at the moment, quite close to a chance of breaking into the top five. Opens up the overtake. We're not yet on the DRS zone. We've got a little bit further to go before we get to that. But we are only on lap 2 of 26, so plenty more racing on the way. Of course, if the weather does stay dry, as per racing rules, there must be more than one slick option selected through the course of this race, and plenty of different strategies have been selected as Sandman hits 129.0. We stay on board with D Perez. DRS expected to be enabled any moment now, and D Perez might have that option to get that advantage over Pleasant Snake. Less than a second separates each of the drivers from the one in front, from Formula 1 Farah and Danger David. It now dropped to just 1.2 seconds, as I said that, with Pleasant Snake in the Red Bull. But of course the Mercedes of D Perez will need to capitalise very quickly. We've got Ivor up in second place at the moment. Formula 1 Farah has dropped down to fourth. Let's jump on board with Ivor and Danger David, where there's been a bit of a battle going on for the Aston Martin and the Mercedes. Danger David, in the past we've seen, he's got a history of making his way up from the back of the grid. Not great in a qualifying condition, but as soon as it comes to race day, it's a completely different Danger David that we get to see. We've seen him fight up from the back on many of occasions. At the moment, he's got some defending to do with the Aston Martin of Evo 32, who goes a little bit wide and takes himself off track ever so slightly there. And he's just behind Danger David at the moment. Formula 1 Farah just behind him as well, 3/10. So if the DRS is allowed and is given, then there's going to be a lot of defending for a lot of these drivers, and there it is. You've got DRS for Formula 1 Farah. He goes up onto the inside. The three drivers all alongside each other. Looks like it's a little bit close to a collision from the Aston Martin there, and Danger David weaves his way back through into second place. Formula 1 Farah now into third, and just like that, in a corner, Evo's dropped down into fourth place. Very close between the three drivers once again, but it isn't over yet. There's still a battle going on to the pit straight between Formula 1 Farah and Danger David. Evo just behind them as well, having a look in at the moment with an opportunity for him to try try and gain a position back. Formula 1 Fire now 1/10 behind Danger David. Has a look at the potential of going up onto the inside. He goes up onto the inside and just has to heel at the last moment, which keeps Danger David in second place, but it's still good battling between the three drivers. This little battle has actually allowed Pleasant Snake and D. Perez to close the gap ever so slightly as this battle for second place continues into the next couple of corners. A little bit further ahead, we do have Sandman at the moment as Formula 1 Fire this time goes up onto the inside and takes the position away from Danger David as we stay on board with Evo 32, getting the best view of it as Formula 1 Fire goes a little bit wide there, nearly opens the door for the Aston Martin of Evo. Danger David gains second place back. It's not over yet. We've almost had half a lap of these three drivers going head to head. Formula 1 Fire gets that position back, but the two drivers are side by side. 2/10 separates the two going into the next couple of corners as we see Pleasant Snake and D. Perez on the backside of this thing looking in with an opportunity to maybe gain a couple of positions themselves. One error from any of these drivers could prove costly to their race and maybe even others. We are into the DRS detection zone. DRS is now open. Evo, Danger David, both with a capitalisation opportunity on Formula 1 Fire if the track's long enough before the next corner becomes apparent. And as it stands at the moment, Formula 1 Fire will be able to hold on to second place, if only for the next couple of corners, as now D. Perez has finally got himself past Pleasant Snake, but that doesn't look like that fight's over either, as D. Perez then has a look at the potential of getting past Evo 32. No DRS on the pit straight here in Silverstone, remember, but you can see there on screen the track of cars that are being followed round, the train of cars that are all within a DRS zone of each other at the moment. This race is very, very close, and we are only 5 laps in to the 26 lap race at the moment. VSM Sandman miles ahead at the minute, 5.2 seconds ahead of Formula 1 Fire on those soft tyres. All these tyre choices from these drivers aren't really proving anything different at the moment, but D. Perez 7/10, 8/10 now behind Evo 32, having a look and biding his time for the right moment to try and get the overtake on Evo 32. Let's jump on board with D. Perez, who goes up onto the inside line here at Formula 1 Fire to take second place back again. He's going to try and keep that position going into the next corner. He's going to have the inside line again. He keeps that position as his own as Formula 1 Fire is forced to go behind him, and now Evo's having a look at potentially moving up a position himself into third place, get himself onto the podium. 1/10 separates them. He has a quick look, but has to heel just before that time of the corner gets to him. DRS is only around the corner for him though, so there is potential that he can actually push this further, push his car further as well. Formula 1 Fire now goes up onto the inside of Danger David. Evo goes out onto the outside as Evo takes a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting. Evo takes third place. Danger David drops down to fourth from second in the space of a corner. Formula 1 Fire now up into second place in the Williams. Excellent driving from these drivers, as we'll now jump on board with D. Perez, who's having a look on the inside of his teammate Danger David. These two have been racing for years alongside each other. They won the championship last year. They're in prime position to win the championship again this year as a constructor. 4th and 5th they sit at the moment, but this race is far from over. We'll jump on board now with Danger David, who looks like he's going to try again onto the inside of Evo Entertainment for the first 6 laps of this race. Very much at the front. I do apologise for any drivers further down the track, but this race at the moment for third place and second place as Evo now goes up onto the inside of Formula 1 Fire and takes second place away from him. It's very difficult to take your eyes away from what's going on at the front of this grid, as we looked at Danger David there maybe going onto the outside of Formula 1 Fire to try and take third place from. It's been a good lap or two since Evo had second place, but he's managed to gain that position back as there starts to be a gap split between Pleasant Snake of the Red Bull and D. Perez in the Mercedes as Formula 1 Fire goes wide, and it opens the door a little bit for Danger David. Frankie now taking a 3-second time penalty, down in 8th place for multiple warnings of corner cutting as well. I do apologise, flying solo makes it very difficult on the voice box, but I'll do my best to bring it you throughout the course of this race. 0.6 of a second separating Formula 1 Fire from Evo as this gap to VSM Sandman stretches even further. At the moment we've got Formula 1 Fire on the inside. It looked like a slight collision between him and Danger David, but Danger David manages to get his way through. Formula 1 Fire now down in 4th place and under pressure from D. Perez, the other Mercedes. He looks in front, he's got a Mercedes. He looks behind, he's got a Mercedes. And he's stuck at the moment trying to figure out where to go to next. Hopefully no damage to him from the challenge there from Danger David as well. 1 second now separates Danger David from Evo as the gap begins to form at the front of the grid. 4.7 seconds separates Evo from Sandman. So whilst he's gaining a bit of a distance on Danger David, it's the pace that the Aston Martin's getting, because even on those hard tyres it's closing the gap on the McLaren of VSM Sandman that is your current race leader. Let's jump on board with D. Perez, who looks like he's going to try and get up onto the inside line of Formula 1 Fara going into the next corner. He's going to have him by the time he gets to the pit straight. He certainly is on those medium tyres. He's got ahead of him. D. Perez now up into 4th place, so the patient game from the Mercedes has worked for Danger David and for D. Perez, who currently sit 3rd and 4th place respectively. Down in 5th at the moment is Formula 1 Fara. He's still got an opportunity to gain 4th place back, but D. Perez has got a gap between him and his teammate Danger David at the moment as Formula 1 Fara takes a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting. That could prove costly in the time of this race. He's 3/10 behind D. Perez at the moment in that Williams. Pleasant Snake now manages to close the gap once again on Formula 1 Fara. He's opened up DRS. Formula 1 Fara's got DRS on D. Perez. So now the battle for 2nd turns into the battle for 4th while we wait to see if anything can happen further up this grid. 0.3 seconds separates Pleasant Snake from Formula 1 Fara. A further 0.2 separates Formula 1 Fara from D. Perez. So it's very close. Even still between these 3 drivers is the Red Bull, who feels like he was probably pushed a little bit too far behind due to the pace of some of these other drivers, will once again have his chance to try and maximise his points potential in the Red Bull. His teammate Quincy down in 12th place at the moment. We'll jump on board with Toxic, who I think is actually the closest. In fact, we'll jump on board with T-Bran whilst there's a break at the front. We'll stay on board with T-Bran, who's down in 14th place in the Alfa Romeo. He's 0.4 seconds, 4/10 behind Veriduco at the moment in the Haas, in 13th place in the battle for 13th. We'll stay on board with him. Just a very patient game played by him as well. Heading into these next couple of corners in Sector 1 at the moment. So we'll have a breather just for a minute. I need a drink to refresh the... And we will go again. We are currently on lap 8 of 26 of this race. And Trugster takes a 3-second time penalty now for corner cutting himself. Let's jump on board a little bit further up with Toxic CZ10, who's got DRS on Formula 1 Fara, who's now dropped into 6th place and seems to be having a bit of a struggle for it himself, even more so, of course, with the DRS and the wing damage, the potential wing damage that hit his car. But now we're at the point where some of these soft tyres may be struggling. We might have to look at some pit stops anytime soon, which is really where the strategies come into play. But since Ivor got 2nd place, he's gained a good 6/10 off BSM Sandman, which on those hard tyres means he could play this strategy to perfection and take the race win away from the McLaren driver and upset the return of the 3-time world champion of the All Assist Soft League in BSM Sandman. Will jump a little bit further forward now to Formula 1 Fara, 1/10 behind Pleasant Snake. He's not done fighting at the moment. Opens up DRS, goes up onto the inside line of Pleasant Snake, takes that position, but Snake isn't finished there. He's got the inside line going into the next corner and onto the pit straight. Might yet get that position back, and I think he's going to. It's neck and neck between the 2 drivers. As we see there, Ivor slides off and onto the grass. Nothing to worry about in terms of damage, nothing to worry about in terms of retirement from the race. But Ivor has spun off, and it's allowed Danger David into 2nd place, D. Perez into 3rd, and that could really have gifted an excellent opportunity for VSM Sandman to walk away as the race winner come the close of play of this race. Lap 9, here we go then. DRS is open from Pleasant Snake as he's just behind D. Perez. Goes up onto the outside line. Not quite enough track for him to be able to try and take the overtake there on D. Perez, but he's got a couple of corners left. And if he can keep the inside line here, we are on board with the front wing of him. Goes ever so slightly close and has to go onto the right-hand side instead of taking that inside line of D. Perez. I think that's cost him a couple of tenths of a second, and it has opened the door a little bit for Formula 1 Fara, who also will have DRS going into the next couple of corners. The next DRS zone, should I say, in the next couple of corners is where Formula 1 Fara will have DRS available to him. Pleasant Snake will as well, with him just behind D. Perez, and as we've seen in the past from D. Perez and Danger David, the job of the Mercedes is to hold drivers off to allow the other driver to push further up the field, and Danger David could well be doing that as Pleasant Snake breezes past. Oh, it looks for a moment there like Formula 1 Fara is going to do the same. Past D. Perez, he nearly lost 2 positions. Keeps the inside line up against Formula 1 Fara though, and I think that Williams might just have the advantage to keep that position there, and I think D. Perez has actually They're neck and neck together, and I think D. Perez is actually going to get this position back. He is going to get this position back on the preceding straight as well, as there goes wide. Formula 1 Ferrari takes a spin and takes a very lucky spin back onto the track, but nearly collides with Toxic, who takes 5th place and says thank you very much on his way through as well. But D. Perez now in 4th place. He's going to have to try and get that position back from Pleasant Snake, but he's done himself and his team a good job by leaving 2 seconds between Pleasant Snake and Danger David at the front for 2nd place. But he is only 5 tenths behind the Red Bull and could force the Red Bull to continue with his defensive strategy before being able to push. We know Pleasant Snake has been performing very well so far this season. He sees himself in 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship at the moment, despite not having a team. 1.9 seconds separates him from Danger David, and the Mercedes continues to push further forward in time and in distance. Let's move further down the track whilst there's a little bit of a break here at the moment. Toxic is just behind D. Perez, but not in battling range at the moment. Let's go on board with the AlphaTauri of Trugster. He's just behind the AlphaTauri of Frankie 1811, both with penalties at the moment. 6th, 7th and 8th all has 3-second time penalties, and actually none of that would stop them from falling out of their respective positions, because Ivor in 9th place currently has an 8.7 second deficit. They have a chance to move further up come the checkered flag of this race. We are nearly reaching now the halfway point of this race, and what a race it has been. Silverstone never disappoints, does it? The weather we saw in qualifying, and the entertainment and the excitement that we've seen through the course of this race so far. We are on board with Trugster, 4 tenths behind Frankie, who's closing that gap on Formula 1 Farah. A chance for any of these to finish in 6th place, with all having the time penalty. It could actually be the overtake could work out for the respective driver, as long as there are no more penalties for each of them. Trugster now opens up DRS almost immediately. His teammate just ahead of him also has DRS. Formula 1 Farah currently doing his defensive duties. He doesn't have DRS. However, he is going to have to defend on Frankie 1811, who goes up onto the inside of him. The two drivers are side by side as we go into the next corner. I think he's going to have to take this one wide. He goes up onto the inside of it, as there's a 5-second time penalty there for Formula 1 Farah for speeding in the pit lane as he goes into the pits. We've got a couple of drivers now pitting, one from hard, one from soft and one from medium tyres. That's Frankie, Pleasant Snake and Formula 1 Farah all make their way into the pits. And we'll see just what the tyre choice is. Pleasant Snake comes out on the hard tyres, expecting to see this through for the next 14 laps. Formula 1 Farah comes out onto the medium tyres, expecting again to see that through for the remainder of this race. And Trugster has done the exact same thing, coming out on those medium tyres, but he has taken a bigger hit in terms of positioning, and he's fallen down into 13th place. So he will hope that he doesn't get caught in too much traffic, as that 13th place continues to fall further, as a lot of drivers have made their way through. But Trugster now comes out in 16th place. Tarkangino pits, he's coming out in 17th. Quincy pitted, he's coming out in 18th place, 19th place, sorry, and Quan, who pitted, will be coming out at the back of the track. So, as it stands, a couple of drivers, a couple of teams have already started their pit stop strategies. We've got 13 laps left to go. A lot of entertainment, I am pretty sure, still on the way between the case of now and the final checkered flag that will be raised. But who will it be raised for? 6.5 seconds distance separating VSM Sandman from the potential of Danger David getting back onto the top step of the podium with the Mercedes. He says every time I speak to him that it's all about the team. Last time, that took him away as a championship winner. As he goes into the pits now, as is VSM Sandman, it's D. Perez that stayed out there on those medium tyres at the moment, expecting to take first place away from Sandman in just a moment's time. DDB890 has just taken a 3-second time penalty for warnings of corner cutting as well. We are now on board with D. Perez, the race leader at the moment. 6 tenths separates him from Toxic CZ10. There's a chance that the Alfa Romeo could still get themselves out onto the top step of the podium, or at least for now. 10 seconds separates them from Ivor in 3rd place. That pit stop from Ivor, Ivor didn't pit. Ivor's still out there, but he spun, of course, didn't he? So he's still on those 12 lap worth of hard tyres. 10 seconds separates him from the top two at the moment. VSM Sandman now in 4th place. So 18 seconds separates VSM Sandman from Toxic and D. Perez. So if either of these two can gain 2 to 3 more seconds, there's a good chance Sandman could lose out from taking that pit stop, especially if he does manage to catch up with Ivor and get caught in traffic. At the moment, it is just open air for him as it stands. So we'll stay on board with Toxic, who's closing this gap on D. Perez at the moment, as T-Brand gets past Skid Solo in a battle for 5th place. Just looking on his way around at the minute, see if there's any other challenges going on. Anybody closer at the minute? We'll go on board with Danger David, who's just behind Skid Solo in the Aston Martin. Heading into Sector 2 as we speak. 3/10 separates him from Skid Solo. DRS will be available in the upcoming straight that they've got as well. He's just behind T-Bran, who he'll have DRS available to him, but he'll have much slower hard tyres as well. But will Danger David be able to get that grip available for those hard tyres in time to push and get that position back? He's going up onto the outside line, tries to switch onto the inside line, and DRS won't be able to assist him too much. It might just get him past Skid Solo actually, and that might be due to the age of the tyres, and he actually might just have got two here as well with the Alfa Romeo of T-Bran. Danger David has done superbly well to get up into 5th place, and D. Perez now pits from 1st, which means he is going to come out just behind VSM Sandman. We'll jump on board to see just how far behind. It's considerably far behind VSM Sandman, and he might actually come out behind his teammate and a couple of other drivers as well. He's lost a couple of positions there to Pleasant Snake and to Formula 1 Faro, who pitted 2 laps ago. So they're on fresh tyres as well. D. Perez now on fresher tyres, needs to get the heat into those tyres as quick as possible because he's lost track positioning by pitting a little bit later. We'll jump on board with Toxic just to see what he decides. He's actually quite far away from going into the pits at the moment, so we'll move away from him to where there's another battle going on between Formula 1 Faro and Skid Solo. He's going up onto the inside, manages to get past Skid Solo, and so is Pleasant Snake as well. So these fresh tyres really doing dividends for Formula 1 Faro and for Pleasant Snake, but Skid Solo's fighting back with the Red Bull at the moment. He's not giving up that position too easily in the Aston Martin. Neither of the Aston Martins have pitted yet. Both started on hard tyres as well, so an interesting strategy approach from both of them. One may pit any moment now. The other, I'd expect probably to stay out there for a little bit longer, as we just saw there, the sideways car of T-Bran. Nothing dangerous. No damage, no need for a safety car, but that spin has forced him to lose a couple of positions, and he's found himself down in 13th place at the moment. Let's have a look at VSM Sandman up in 3rd place. Actually, he's just lost quite a bit of time from what he was showing. So we'll stay on board with Pleasant Snake, who's closing the gap onto Formula 1 Faro at the moment in a battle for 5th place. You can see at the top, Truckster gets a 5-second time penalty for ignoring a yellow flag, but it's not telling me there is a yellow flag, so that may be a delayed bit of information that we're receiving from race control. There's the yellow flag now in Sector 2 with a couple of cars all bunched together going into Maggots and Beckett's onto the next DRS zone. Got quite a few cars competing down there as Toxic now chooses to pit onto the soft tyres Pleasant Snake, therefore moving up into 5th place at the moment. Danger David 9 seconds away from VSM Sandman. VSM Sandman 3 seconds away from Evil. So it turns out after all of those pit stops, VSM Sandman has managed to gain some time on some of the drivers in and around him. Evil out on the top step of the podium at the moment. He's still got a pit stop left to go. That should drop him down to, I'd say, around about 8th, maybe even 9th place after that's happened. Quincy takes a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings as well. Let's jump on board with Peter Caspi in the Ferrari. We've not seen too much of him throughout the course of this race. He is now competing with Tarcangino in that battle for 12th place. Let's jump onto a different board, in fact, so we'll try and get a different view of it. Unfortunately, the TV camera has just changed things ever so slightly as DRS is open, goes up onto the inside line of the Alpine, says thank you very much and takes that position away from him. Peter Caspi now into 12th place. He'll have a bit of defending to do for the next couple of laps though, with Tarcangino just behind him. And he might just be able to push himself further and further away, as now Evil has pitted from pole position. Naturally, VSM Sandman has then seen himself back onto the first position. Danger David will follow ever so shortly after. He's currently 13 seconds behind Evil, but this could actually have worked out for Evil with excellent positioning. After that spin, he could have gained quite a few positions back on this as he's gone into the pits. We just watch now as Danger David passes, Formula 1 Faro passes, Pleasant Snake passes, Toxic passes, D. Perez passes. So D. Perez has lost quite a few positioning after all that pit stops. He's now down in 6th place at the moment, just behind Toxic CZ10. We'll jump on board with Pleasant Snake, who's closing that gap onto Formula 1 Faro. Formula 1 Faro with the 3-second time penalty. Bear in mind as well, 1.2 seconds though separates him from Danger David in 2nd place. So with a bit of momentum, he could actually get 2nd place back from him. I do think 1st place, barring an incident or an error from VSM Sandman, or even a safety car that we could see at any point in this race, this race looks like it is going in the direction of the McLaren garage once again. So Danger David in 2nd place, Formula 1 Faro in 3rd. We're on board at the moment with the Red Bull of Pleasant Snake. 0.6 seconds separates him from Formula 1 Faro. A further 8/10 separates him from Danger David, who sits 10 seconds behind VSM Sandman at the moment. Let's jump a little bit further down the track then to the closest battle we've got going on. That is Quincy and Peter Caspi at the moment. That's 6/10 separating the Red Bull from the Ferrari. In fact, we'll move further down to Veriduco, battling with the Ferrari just in time for him to attempt the overtake, and the Haas manages to get past DDB890. The Ferrari now down in 18th place at the moment. Veriduco moving up to 17th in the Haas. So just having a look at where the closest battles are at the moment, and we might have one at the front, and that's where Formula One Farah is within touching distance of Danger David. 3/10 the distance between the two cars. Since this pit stop strategy has taken place for both these drivers, Formula One Farah has been finding a lot of time in these medium tyres that I dare say the Mercedes has struggled to find in those hard. So we'll see just how this could work for him. He's into the DRS zone. The back wing opens almost immediately, and 10 miles per hour extra of speed gets him past the Mercedes of Danger David, and he'll be hoping to push on from that. If these medium tyres can see him through to the end of the race, this might be a masterclass from Formula One Farah. Despite taking that 3-second time penalty, could still see him finish on the second step of the podium in the Williams car. So 3/10 separates the two drivers at the moment, and Danger David will get DRS heading through into the next DRS zone, which is in just a couple of corners time. He's currently going through the DRS detection zone, which tells us he will be getting it in just a moment. Toxic just a couple of cars behind him as well, closing the gap on Pleasant Snake, and he's just managed to get him as well. And now Formula One Farah defending from Danger David. Danger David, I think he's going to run out of track. He's not going to have that opportunity to get past him on this, but he's managed to keep close to him nonetheless, as Toxic moves up into 4th place, as Formula One Farah at the moment now 11 seconds behind VSM Sandman, but he needs to gain, more than anything, another 2.4 seconds on Danger David if he is to keep 2nd place and make it his own. At the moment, that 3-second time penalty would see him fall into around about 5th place. So he really needs to make sure that 3 seconds is gained. 2.3 further needed for him. Let's move on board. In fact, Danger David's actually the closest we've got. In fact, no, he isn't. T-Bran's just got quite close. So we'll jump on board with T-Bran at the moment, just in time for his overtake on Quan, getting himself up into 14th place ahead of the Williams. Formula One Farah's teammate, of course, down in 15th place at the moment. 3/10 separates 15th from 14th as we speak. Moving on to the closest battle we've got going on, that is Toxic closing the gap on Danger David, who seems to be in reverse at the moment since that pit stop. He's lost the position to Formula One Farah. He might even lose one to Toxic at the moment. And that defending work could actually work more favourably for Formula One Farah, who could probably push on a little bit further ahead of the Mercedes at the moment, whilst Danger David has to focus on not only trying to attack Formula One Farah to get that position back, but also defend from the Alfa Romeo. He doesn't have a time penalty. If he gets ahead of him, regardless of how far ahead of him he is, he's going to finish there as well. But he's got DRS. This straight just isn't quite long enough for him once again as we go round onto these last couple of corners of this lap, and we begin at lap 19 of 26. This race just seems to have flown by, doesn't it? On a 50% lap race, who'd have thought it? Of some of the races that we've seen ourselves go through. Last weekend in Monaco, for example, that race dragged through with the safety car. We were pulled through in that race, but now 7 laps left to go, and we don't even want this one to finish, as Toxic CZ10 in 4th place is close to Danger David. Now there's as close of a gap to Toxic to Danger David than Danger David's got to Formula One Farah at the moment. And this is the closest we've got from any of the drivers. This is actually the only drivers we've got that are within a second of each other. Peter Caspi takes a 3-second time penalty there. Toxic has a little bit of a peak on Danger David. Opens up DRS. Danger David's got DRS as well. Tries going out onto the outside. Gives Danger David the inside line, which allows him to keep position. But he's trying to close that gap still on Formula One Farah. That's now up to 7/10. 3/10 separates him from Toxic in the Alfa Romeo. Still going round onto the old pit straight. And following that corner, the long straight corner. It's the most contradictory corner I could even announce it on commentary for you. But it's a long straight that turns into a quick corner for you, the old pit straight, if you will. And now they're going round into Maggots and Beckett's before they take themselves into the second DRS zone. VSM Sandman, as you can potentially see down the bottom right, is heading his way round now, just past the pit entry, while some of these drivers are just going into the second DRS zone, which tells you all you need to know about the distance between these drivers at the moment, as Formula One Farah still has defending to do. Toxic almost had the overtake overtake on Danger David there as well. So in the battle for third place, it does continue as D. Perez now joins as the third participant in this battle, and he's as close to Toxic as Toxic is to Danger David. So we are back to where we were around about 18 laps ago, with multiple cars fighting for one position. In the space of one corner, you can drop from third to fifth, and that's the excitement of the All Assists Off League Season 12, Race 6 in Silverstone. One of the more entertaining races I've had the pleasure of covering throughout the course of my time covering the All Assists Off League, and it isn't over yet. Toxic in fourth place, then 4 tenths behind Danger David, who's gained a position here, or gained quite a bit of time on Formula 1 Fire. He's going to try up the inside and just has to give a bit of time to Formula 1 Fire there to allow him to continue pushing forward. Otherwise, it would have been a case of a potential collision between the two drivers and would have been Danger David's fault. But going through these next couple of corners onto another long straight, opportunity for him to close that gap further on Formula 1 Fire. He's now got two drivers battling behind him. D. Perez hears quite a lot about how Danger David is quite a contender for the Drivers' Championship. He'll want to prove that he can also be named inside of that category. He's 1 tenth behind Toxic at the moment, so let's jump on board with D. Perez. We're quite literally on board with D. Perez at the moment. He opens up DRS, but Toxic's also got that on his teammate Danger David. As Danger David, as soon as we leave him, gets that position on Formula 1 Fire. There is a yellow flag coming out in Sector 2. It's irrelevant to what's happening at the moment at this part of the race, whereas Formula 1 Fire continues his battle to get second place back from Danger David. 3 seconds currently sees him falling into fifth place, even still with that time penalty. Toxic and D. Perez also just behind him could actually knock him further back down the grid if they can gain and capitalise on their momentum going through the pit straight and onto the first corner, as D. Perez now takes a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings himself. That could prove costly and do a massive favour for Formula 1 Fire, who now will only fall as low as fourth place on the grid after all's said and done, and the penalties have been taken into account. But he's still trying to close that gap on Danger David and take second place away from him, and he's gone up this side of him with DRS assistance. The extra 10 miles per hour does a huge difference for him, and he manages to get that position from Danger David, who might even lose to Toxic at the moment. But Toxic's also battling with D. Perez. D. Perez tries to go around on the outside. We've got two drivers battling for one position, just behind two drivers battling for one position, and Danger David takes second place back from Formula 1 Fire. D. Perez takes the position back from Toxic CZ10 in fifth place. Toxic now moves up into third place actually, as Formula 1 Fire drops a little bit further behind, and Pleasant Snake even gets past Formula 1 Fire. So we'll just jump on board with him and see what happens, as it looks like he's gone wide, lost a lot of grip on those tyres, and D. Perez has gone wide and off track as well. So something might have happened between Perez and Formula 1 Fire. I apologise, I said at the beginning as a disclaimer, without skin there is a chance I may miss the odd collision, and that looks like it's just what's happened there between Perez and Formula 1 Fire, who've dropped to 8th and 9th place respectively. Their time penalties taken into account means now everything that's going on at the front of this track is you finish where you finish. Formula 1 Fire struggling for fuel. Thanks for that, Herman. Needed that update just so I'm aware of what's going on. Herman should join me on commentary next time. We know that's going to happen. We need to sort that out for one of these races. When he's got the championship or one, we'll sort out him joining me in the commentary box. That should be an interesting race itself. 4 laps left to go. Here, 5 laps left to go even, should I say. We're on lap 22 of 26 at the moment. It's Danger David's 5 tenths behind Toxic in second place. The Alfa Romeo could upset the odds and take second place away from Mercedes from absolutely nowhere. We've had a lot of battling between Ivor, between D. Perez, between Formula 1 Fire, Pleasant Snake and Danger David, and it's Toxic that currently sits on the second step of the podium. D. Perez just behind him as well. 7 tenths separates him from the Alfa Romeo. Pleasant Snake now 2.4 seconds behind. Let's jump on board with Peter Caspi in the Ferrari. He's slowly but surely making his way up this grid, and he's now got Quincy just in front of him. 17 seconds though separates Quincy from Formula 1 Fire. That might be a write-off for him, but he's got this opportunity to get himself into a top 10 position. His time penalty will be made redundant when we see him take Quincy as well, if we see him take Quincy, should I say, not making anything assumptive, with the opening of his rear wing, then making his way down the long straight, and the first of 2 DRS zones here in Silverstone. He is still bugging him behind him. 4 tenths separates him from the Red Bull of Quincy at the moment, now dropped to 6 tenths. He's continuing to battle and make his way up this grid. That's no longer the closest battle that we've got going on, courtesy of Sir Ibo at the back of the grid. See if he can get the overtake on Racing Wheel. 2 tenths separates him from the driver ahead of him. See if he can get past the Alpine going into these couple of corners. And I think he's just had to lose a little bit of time on him there, having to slow things down ever so slightly. So we'll jump on board with Danger David, who I believe is the closest we've got to an overtake at the moment. Don't be mistaken for Frankie in the Alfa Tauri, closing the gap on the Aston Martin of Ivor either. That doesn't look like it's too far away from a battle happening either, as this is the battle for second place between Toxic and Danger David. Danger David currently on the hard tyres, 10 laps old. Toxic on the quicker, softer tyres. But he looks like it's a foregone conclusion, and he won't be catching up with the McLaren of VSM Sandman, who looks like it is all but confirmed that on his return he'll be taking the top step of the podium once again. He said before that it was consistency that might have let him down. It was definitely not ability that was going to let him down in the bid for the Drivers' Championship and regaining it. And this season he just hasn't quite been at the races enough, pun intended. Danger David now in third place, 2/10 behind Toxic in the Alfa Romeo. Just 3 laps left to go. We're entering into the final 2 laps of this race though, as Danger David now tries to close that gap further on Toxic. He's not going to quite have it on this corner. We'll see if he can get it on the next couple of corners. See if the Mercedes can take second place back, as D. Perez and Formula 1 Forest seem to have slipped into the oblivion down in 8th and 9th place at the moment. Let's jump on board with Quincy and Skid Solo. They're battling together, and they've also got Peter Caspi there in the battle for 10th place. You've got 3 drivers battling for 10th place at the moment, and DRS has worked for Quincy, who's gone up onto the outside line of the Ferrari, and followed through is Skid Solo, which means Peter Caspi is down in 12th place at the moment. Quincy nicely done, and Skid Solo just following the Red Bull driver through in positioning, and he looked like he might have gone up the inside of Quincy into the pit straight. He didn't do so, and it looks like he got a bit of a tyre spin there, but managed to keep himself on track, so not too much to worry about, as Peter Caspi is just behind him, not letting them forget about him at the moment. As Danger David, we did just miss it then, managed to take second place back, but Toxic 1/10 behind him. It's very close between the 2 drivers, Alfa Romeo and Mercedes, fighting for second place at the moment. Just looking at where they are on track, going through the Maggots and Beckett's onto the second DRS zone. We'll see if this could work for Toxic in his favour on those soft tyres. He's got the speed, he's got the tyres, he's got the DRS, but can he get past Danger David and his excellent defensive work that we've seen from the Mercedes in the past? He goes up onto the outside. That's not going to be enough to take him on that corner, but can he get him onto the next corner? They go side by side, and he gets him actually before that corner on the straight. Toxic keeps that momentum, leaving that corner. Slow in, quick out, and take second place away from the current defending champion of Danger David. We're now on the penultimate lap of this race. And Ivor 32 at the moment is in 5th place on soft tyres. Pleasant Snake in 4th. Danger David in 3rd, Toxic in 2nd as it stands at the moment. We'll just have a look for where these battles are going on before the final lap of the race. We might not get to actually ride along with Sandman for his final lap of the race because of what's going on elsewhere on track. Let's just jump quickly on board with Skid Solo. He's the closest to Quincy at the moment, going round onto the pit straight. Him and T-Brand as well just behind them, and then Peter Caspi a little bit further behind them in the Ferrari as well. So we'll see what they can do on the pit straight. We've got Skid Solo that we are on board with at the moment. Takes a bit of a lunge, doesn't actually collide with Quincy, although it looks very close to the back of his car, and opts to follow him round the corners instead of taking any risks. And I suppose at this point of the race you don't really want to be taking any risks at all. So let's jump on board with Danger David as he's closed that gap back on Toxic, who's taken second place away from him. He's now got DRS to assist him, going round onto the final couple of corners of lap 25 of 26. Doesn't need too much of an effort and manages to get past him with that DRS, proving the difference. And we're not done yet between these 2 drivers. VSM Sandman has just started the final lap of the race on his return back to the All Assist Soft League. It's great to see him back. I'd say it's great to see the competitive edge, but there's been no competition for him. He's 17 seconds ahead at the top of the grid. He's 17 seconds, which will put him very comfortably at the top step of the podium. When all is said and done, it's McLaren back on the top step in favour of VSM Sandman. Played to perfection, this race has been done from him, and he will be back hopefully competing in a larger capacity on more occasions with Danger David and the current championship leader Herman, who of course is absent from today's race but has been watching from afar, and we appreciate him joining us to go through this as Ivor manages to get past Pleasant Snake on the final lap of the race. There's a battle going on between them two now in the battle for fourth place as Toxic has slipped off the pace from Danger David. 7/10 separates them at the moment as they're making their way around these next couple of corners into sector 2 at the moment. Ivor 2.3 seconds behind Toxic. I think that's too far behind for him to be able to battle for third place at the moment. The Aston Martin, who'd had a very good race himself apart from the spin he had earlier on that did obviously prove costly, he's recovered very well and managed to get himself back up into fourth place. Pleasant Snake currently third in the Drivers' Championship, also without a team this season, has proven on many of occasions that he should be with the team for next season. He's currently in fifth place, but that ain't over yet. He's trying to battle onto the outside now with DRS open for him. He's still not done as he follows through the corner. Ivor 32, still a couple more challenges going round into the next couple of corners onto the left hand side. I think Ivor's going to be able to defend this very nicely, takes the corner very well, and it is fourth place for the Aston Martin of Ivor 32. Danger David got in second place, VSM Sandman out in first, Toxic in third place, Pleasant Snake fifth, Frankie in sixth place will follow through, Truckster into seventh place, D Perez will come through in eighth place, and I think that's where he's going to stay as well in these last couple of corners. Yeah, his time penalty isn't going to separate him from Formula 1 Farah, who's got a time penalty himself. His time penalty also isn't going to separate him from T-Brand 1. The top three on the podium, it's finished VSM Sandman, Danger David and Toxic CZ10. We'll have obviously post-race interviews on the way very shortly for you as well, as Formula 1 Farah now crosses the line to take ninth place. T-Brand shortly behind him, just going onto the pit straight now. Will jump above Formula 1 Farah, as will Skid Solo, as will Quincy. Peter Caspi in 13th place in the Ferrari will bring that home. His teammate DB890 will follow shortly behind as well, 13.4 seconds behind to be precise, but I think he might lose some positions here to Veriduco and Tarcangino, and even to my surprise Tobalenzen gets in ahead of him as well, so he finishes in 17th place. Guam will finish in 18th place. Racing Wheel Suribo will not get to do their final lap as they were lapped by VSM Sandman, 19th and 20th place respectively for the Alpine and for the Haas. But that is game, set and match on race number 6 of season 12 of the All Assists Off League, and it has been entertainment from start to finish. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll have some post-race interviews on the way in just a few moments' time. That concludes race 6 of season 12 of the All Assist Soft League. Before we do sign off and look forward to race 7 taking place next week, we are joined by 4th place Ivo. Ivo, what a race that has been for you.
It was good fun, but I made a disaster at the beginning, man. The pain. It was good fun.
Yeah, it was a very strong start from yourself, and then of course I think you spun off at one point, and it seemed to lose you quite a few places. But a great effort from yourself to get yourself back up into 4th place. What was the thought process once you'd spun off of how far you could actually get your car back up the grid?
Well, yeah, when I spun, I believe I was 10th after I recovered on track, so I decided I went a little bit longer on hards. My plan was to put mediums, but I decided let's put softs. I will cut a couple of laps for softs and try to that they last, and they did. It was good fun. I had good pace. I'm happy. Not very happy with the spun, but it was good fun.
Yeah, I think the maths I was doing at the time, because it was around the pit stop strategies that were taking place, that had you not spun at that point, I think you was in a very good position to hold 1st place and hold Sandman up ever so slightly. I know it's one of the longer pit entries, but still a great effort from yourself to get yourself back up into 4th. Was there too much of an incidental change of strategy from yourself that thought, I've really got to pit now? Did it do too much damage to your tyres, or was it just business as usual?
Well, it was just... everything was okay in the car, so okay. I knew I had the pace, so I just kept going, go a little bit longer with a little bit of luck. There was a safety car. There wasn't, for one, but I mean, it was just try to do hot lap after hot lap after hot lap. It paid off. It was good. I'm happy.
And you were part of the grouping of drivers that, for the vast part of around about 6 laps, you were all competing, and you could have dropped anything within a corner from like 6 places or gained 6 places from the sake of one corner. What were your thought process there? Because, of course, with All Assists off, the reason this league's very different to others is that there are no assists there for you. It's all down to human error. Were there any nerves from yourself driving through that sort of situation, or was it fully focused? You knew what you needed to do in the task at hand?
Yeah, well, I was focused. I knew the guys at the beginning, all of them had, because I was on hards, they had medium, so I said, okay, I'm going to fight a little bit, but I'm not going to fight a lot. If they are going to pass me, I'm going to let them, and I'm going to try to stick behind them and get the DRS, for the tires to wear out, and I believe that started to happen in like 6 or 7, I don't remember. So, and then I saw the chance to recover the 2nd place, and I went for it.
Well, Ivo, congratulations on a 4th place finish. Despite everything that happened in that race, it is a great finish for yourself, a great result as well. So congratulations on that. We'll move across now to speak to Quincy. Now, Quincy, in the Red Bull yourself, despite an 11th place finish for yourself, your teammate managed to get up to 5th place. What was it like racing alongside Pleasant Snake?
Good as usual. I knew he was faster. I didn't expect much from this race, to be honest. No practice again. But I think I had quite a few good battles with some guys on track before I spun. But then recovered to 10th, but then obviously penalties pushed me down to 11th, I believe. So all in all, pretty average race, I'd say. The pace wasn't there. But I enjoyed it. It was still fun.
And what's your opinion on the penalties that you received? There were a lot of drivers throughout the course of today's race that did receive penalties. Whilst I was watching from the angles and the camera angles we were given, it not necessarily each time looked like it was deserving of a penalty, not just for you but for other drivers as well. What's your opinion on how it worked for you? Do you feel that you kept leaving track maybe too often, or anything in particular that you found?
There was 2 times that I definitely left track. Once in Cops, and then another one on the entry of the penultimate corner. But the first one that I had wasn't fair. No, it was during a battle, and I sort of went a bit left to try and stop getting any damage, and it just gave me a warning, which is fine. But hey ho, it's one of those things. The game sometimes just does what it likes, so I'll just go with it. It is what it is.
And I said I'd ask you at towards the end of the season. I asked you at the beginning, Mercedes last season, Red Bull this season. Now, how are you finding that transition?
I miss my Mercedes. I will say that. I do miss my Mercedes. That car is my favourite car to drive. So I'm looking forward to next season going back in it.
Excellent. Well, Quincy, thank you very much, and congratulations on a successful race. But that is all we've got time for this week. We'll be back next week with race 7 of the All Assist Soft League season number 12.